Welcome back. My name is Jim Kaseman. We're talking about how to get to know God intimately. And really, we've moved over to the subject of faith. Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith, it's impossible to please God, for you must believe that he is and that he's a rewarder of them who diligently seek him. And so with God, he's a spirit. He doesn't have a physical body. So the only way that we can walk with God is by faith. You really believe he exists, and everything you do with God is all by faith. Then we talked about two worlds. We refreshed our memory on the fact that we are human spirits and we live for eternity, and our physical bodies are temporary. There comes a time when they will cease to exist and turn into dust. We talked about how the things in the physical dimension, the universe and everything, is all physical. It's dying. Death is everywhere. And ultimately, at the end of the millennial reign, even this physical universe and everything in it, which includes the earth, will be consumed in fire. 2 Peter chapter 3, and pick it up with verse 10, especially in the Amplified Bible. And you'll see it's all consumed, no trace of sin left. And then there'll be a new heaven and a new earth. So we talked about how the things of this physical realm are temporary and the things of the spiritual realm are eternal, and they never cease to exist. Angels or spirits, they'll never cease to exist. 1/3 will be in hell, which never ceases to exist. 2/3 will be in heaven for eternity, which heaven never will cease to exist. We as human spirits will always live. We never die. We just die spiritually. That's the difference between physical death. So that means all of the human spirits that have not received Jesus as their Lord and Savior, and when their physical bodies die, they'll spend eternity in hell, which never ceases to exist. It's a spiritual place. But then those who receive Jesus as their Lord and Savior, when their physical bodies die, they're absent from the Lord, present with the Lord, spending eternity in heaven. So the things of the Spirit never cease to exist. We saw that clearly in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 18. All right, but then we moved over on to 2 Kings chapter 6. We picked it up in verse 8. And we see the Syrians want to make war with Israel, but they're totally frustrated because everywhere they go to try to get to Israel, Israel has already been told by the prophet, this is where they're going to go. This is where they're at. And the prophet, of course, did that all supernaturally. He didn't see anything. And of course, that's just exactly the way it worked out. So the Syrians could never have success attacking Israel. So the king then, we left off, wanted to know who among us is the spy. And then, of course, one of the servants said in verse 12, none, my lord, O king, but Elisha the prophet who is in Israel tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom. Wow. That's the gifts of the Spirit in operation. And I don't know if we talked about them or not, but we will again, in the future. There's the 9 gifts, of course. And then, of course, included in those 9 gifts is the word of wisdom, the word of knowledge, and discerning of spirits. So he had a word of knowledge, shared it with the king, and sure enough, it was true. And so then, now here's how stupid you could be when you don't know God. The king now, this prophet tells the king of Israel exactly what he's going to do. But yet he says in verse 14, therefore he sent horses and chariots and a great army there. And they came by night and surrounded the city where the prophet was. Well, isn't that something? Now the prophet supernaturally knows everything they're going to do, but they're not thinking. They're controlled totally by their physical body, which we'll talk about later. But when the servant of the man of God arose early and went out, there was an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And the servant said to him, alas, my master, what shall we do? And so he, the prophet Elisha, answered, do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Those that are with us are more than those that are with them. Now they're surrounding the whole city. And those with us, how many is that? 1, 2. 2 of us. And that's more than all of these soldiers surrounding the city. And then Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray, open his eyes that he may see. You know, you and I uh, can't see into the spiritual realm because we're confined in these physical bodies, just like these two. But there are times on special occasions when God will open your eyes and you can see into the spiritual realm. Might see your angel, might see demons or whatever it is. And but that's just as God wills. So here then the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And what did he see? And behold, now it's in he saw into the spiritual realm. He's not looking at the soldiers that are surrounding the city. He's looking into the spiritual realm. God opened his eyes. And what did he see? The mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. So in the spiritual realm, there were more chariots of fire surrounding Elisha and his servant than there was with all of the soldiers that were surrounding the city. Isn't that wild? So there's two worlds. See, that's the point. Here they are in this physical realm, but then God opened his eyes and is able to see into the spiritual realm. So we live in this physical dimension, and we also at the same time we're living in the spiritual dimension. And this physical dimension occupies the same space as the spiritual dimension. Now get your head around that one. So in other words, if God could open my eyes right now, I would see my angels right here. Matter of fact, twice when I was preaching, once in the state of Montana and another place at a time in the state of in the nation of Finland. While I was preaching, people saw my angels with me. And wherever I would move when I was preaching, the angels moved with me. And so people have seen that twice now. I've never seen my angels. And but I did have the opportunity one time. We Jonathan, our son, he was our son. He was half black, half white. We'd adopted him, and so in the nighttime you could see his white teeth. And he had the habit, I don't know, he had the habit of always coming into our bedroom, and then he'd stand alongside the bed and he'd want something, wake us up. Well, I was awakened because somebody was standing by my bed, and of course I thought it was Jonathan. And then I realized it was not him, that it was a demon. And so I commanded that demon to leave my home. I took authority over him and all of that. And I actually was able to see, God opened my eyes. I saw the demon float across the foot of the bed and went out of the bedroom. The door was closed and went right through the door and gone. And that's something. So I just had the opportunity that moment to see that. I'd rather have seen my angel, but that's how it goes. Anyway, two worlds, see? And it's right here. Now, the problem is that most Christians now, let's not even talk about the people in the world, but the problem is that most Christians are not even aware of the spiritual realm. They go to church like I did before I was born again, before I asked Jesus to come into my heart. I was part of my family belonged to a big denominational church, and it was dead. Never told us that we had to ask Jesus to come into our heart or anything like that. And but we had we'd go through this religious ceremony, the traditions and all of this, and never connected with the spiritual realm. It was just something we did in the physical realm. We went through our little worship on Sunday, it was in the flesh. There was nothing supernatural about it. We never even raised our hands, matter of fact, like I do now. And we even had to put out our cigarettes and quit cussing as we entered the church building, because this is God's house. But it was crazy. We had no concept that we were living in two worlds. All we could see was what with the flesh, and we're going to talk about it in the next session. All right, so time's up again, and God bless you. We'll see you in the next session.